our businesses, whatever it is, our relationships. And so we all have a choice in what type of building we are going to build. I talked about how you have a choice in how you build your foundation, how you build the structure, those walls, how you design it, how you construct it. It's your choice. God does not override our will in how we want to do life. He's given us a free will, so we get to do life the way that we want to do life, which can be self-defeating if you don't build right. With that, turn over to Galatians chapter 5. Galatians chapter 5. And in Galatians chapter 5, verse 14 through 15, it talks about how the entire law is summed up in one single command. And so whether you adhere to the 10 commandments or not, and the reality is that there's more than 10 commandments. It's just Christians hone in on the 10 commandments, those commandments that were given to Moses, but actually in your Hebraic and in your Jewish customs, there's a whole lot of other laws to adhere to. But he says here that the entire law is literally summed up in a single command, and it is to love your neighbor as yourself. And that if you keep, Paul talks about how if we keep biting and devouring each other, that will ultimately destroy each other. And so again, we have choices to make in the type of house that we're going to build, or how we're going to rebuild our house, how we're going to rebuild our families, our relationships. And I shared on last week that, or one of the questions actually that come across was, what is it that prevents us from doing the right thing? What is it that prevents us from being our best selves in our relationships, in our families? What prevents us from loving someone else the way that we should and the way that we believe we should, but for some reason we can't? And that thing that prevents us from loving, being, and doing what God has created us to do and be to each other is a wounded spirit. Proverbs 18:14 says, "The spirit of a man will sustain his infirmity." Infirmity meaning sickness, perversity, disease, weaknesses. But it goes on to say, "But a wounded spirit, who can bear?" So you will find ways within yourself to put up with and deal with your weaknesses, your diseases, perversity, dark things that you're trying to deal with. But then the scripture says something very interesting. But who can handle a wounded spirit? And so oftentimes we don't realize that although we're wrestling with things within ourselves, it's coming out. You can be bleeding and not know you're bleeding, and you're bleeding on yourself, you're bleeding on those around you. Have you ever been cut and somebody sees you and says, "Hey, you're bleeding"? And you go, "Where am I bleeding?" And then the blood is on your clothes, and if it's too much of a mess, it can get on everything around you. How many of you know that blood stains? Amen. Hurt stains those around us. Open wounds that go unaddressed spew out infection. So there's three, what I would call shots of revelation that I'd like to give you real quick, and as it pertains to this text, and that is, again, we can handle, believe it or not, the human spirit is capable of handling all kinds of physical afflictions. But when our spirit is wounded, we can become hard to be around. You can become hard to be around. I was wounded some years ago by a situation and circumstance that had transpired in my life, and it took someone from Florida, a minister friend of mine from Florida, to come here to call me once he returned home and said, "Hey, can I be honest with you? Can I share something with you?" And I said, "Sure, you can." He said, "Man, you're bleeding. you're hurt. I was like, why you say that? He said, I can hear it in your message. Now, he was not aware of everything. This was when we were on Woodbury, when we went through that big fight over there and everything. And he was not aware of all the details of that. And so we didn't even have a relationship for me to even share those things with him. But he was able to see that I was bleeding. And sometimes people on the outside can see what we are experiencing because we're spewing it out whether we realize it or not. And that's why God places people around us who care enough about us to tell us about ourselves or point out things that maybe we don't want to confront. And in some respects, we're just really trying to figure it out ourselves. Have you ever just trying to figure out something yourself, and I really don't want you to, it's like they used to have a saying, don't you know that person know they got that problem? So do you think I need you to tell me that I got a problem that I already know that I got? Because listen to me, when there's a spiritual wound, you really don't want anybody to address or listen to me, your wound. But you. But the oxymoron is you don't even know how to deal with your wounds, your own personal challenges and issues. You guys with me? Okay. I'm going somewhere with this. A wounded spirit, a wounded person, spirit man, is someone who has been hurt, bruised, or damaged in their spirit. And so therefore there is this constant wrestling with pain. And no one understands it but you, because oftentimes we don't talk about our hidden pains. And which leads to this point, a wounded spirit, an individual who has been wounded, comes as a result also of a reaction to either negative words, events, actions, or violations of that person's right, who they are. And so its reactions actually cause the experience actually crushes you to the point that you don't know how to respond. You don't know how to handle it. So your reacting is as if you are drowning in a pool of water and a lifeguard jumps in to help you. And one of the things, I was a lifeguard when I was a teenager at the YMCA, and we were taught to share with people, if you fight me, I can't help you. Now, what's crazy is we were trained to tell the person drowning, if you fight me, I can't help you. And that's to try to get them psychologically to calm down. But how do you tell a man who is drowning to calm down? They're not even conscious that they're fighting you. They're literally fighting for their life. They're fighting for their breath. They're fighting to stay alive within their own, come on. And so I'm reaching to help you, and now I penalize you because you're fighting for your life, or you allow someone who's fighting for their life to literally fight you, grab you, get a hold to you, and pull you down with them because they didn't know how to surrender to the help that was being offered. What it does is, past hurts and pains, it crushes an area of our spirit man, which affects our soul, which is quite devastating in how it affects us. Because the crazy part is you don't even realize that these things have affected you. And in some respects, you actually think that you've gotten past it. But all you did is you put a little shout out on the stain and remove the stain. Or what you did is, I got blood on my t-shirt. Hey, check this out. Can I get a t-shirt from you? This one, I messed this one up, and you take that t-shirt off. Watch this. You borrow another t-shirt from somebody else. You go buy a new dress. You go buy, come on, a new hairstyle. And all we're doing is we're just covering up something that is actually killing us. And how many of you know that you can't cover up mold? The one thing about bleach, mildew, yes, but mold, you can't put bleach on mold and think that the mold is going to go away. Just see, like, think about that for a moment. So again, we have choices. We have choices to make, and that is what we're either going to build or how we're going to rebuild. If you're going to have a royal empire or you're going to have a shack. And this was inspired a little bit from the movie The Shack, which I encourage people to watch, because sometimes things can happen in your life and you feel it's unfair and you don't understand. And you're saying, God, why did this happen? I've tried to do all the right things, and this shouldn't happen. And it reminded me of actually what transpired over on Woodbury, because I, in my mind, was the perfect preacher. I was holy. I was righteous. I wasn't crooked. I wasn't messing with women. I wasn't stealing no money. You know, my words were right. My spirit was right. I tried to be the perfect minister. We tried to be the perfect family. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the devil came to steal, kill, and destroy. There's things that happen in life you just don't understand. And there are certain things that happen in your life. Listen to me, that some of us, it happened 40 years ago and you're still wrestling with it. I wrestled with my mom having a divorce for 40 years before I asked her, why did you leave? So I had this hidden thing with her that it was her fault in some respect of why she robbed me from a better life, which I seen my father provide for another family. Why do I have to struggle and you have it good? Why'd you have to leave, oh boy? You couldn't have worked it out? So 40 years later, she tells me, I would have lost my mind if I would have stayed. And it was just the way that she said it. I got it. I got it. But for 40 years, I didn't understand it. You guys with me so far? So we have a choice in what kind. Let me ask you all something. What destroys a house? Give me four things. What destroys a house? What destroys a family? Huh? Termites, okay. All right. Termite. All right, come on. Foundation. Huh? Lack of maintenance. That's good. What? What did he say? Rats. We're going to put that down just on GP. Okay, and we can think of a lot of things. Let me ask you something. Okay, what is it that builds a royal empire? Respect. Huh? Support. Plan. Money is popping up on this. What'd you say? Money, resources. Give me one more thing. Okay. All right, let's go with, that's what I was waiting to hear. She said strong foundation or God, but I was waiting to hear this. Which she said it. I know it. I know it. Y'all sensitive. So again, we all have a choice in how we build our empires or how we rebuild. So last week I left off talking about how I got a revelation of what it kind of brought my wife to experience me. My wife and I experiencing some things and things that I realized how it got in different areas of my life. And it was this word called strife. And so I shared with you on last week the definition of strife is conflict, antagonism, quarreling, struggle, clashing, competition, disagreement, opposition, and fighting. Doesn't that describe some of our families? Come on. Work relationships, marriage relationships, come on, relationships with children. Because somewhere strife got in. Are you with me? And strife gets in as a result of hurts, as a result of anger, as a result of unforgiveness. Those are the things that lead up to strife. But one of the things that sets in is resentment. And resentment turns into what we would call bitterness. And how many know bitter people don't get better? And so you go from that bitterness to all of a sudden you have strife, which can be compared to strychnine in your life, in your house, in your family, with your children, in your business, in that culture, in your atmosphere. And so resentment and bitterness are two sides of the same coin. And here's the crazy part about both. They are both passive-aggressive reactions to anger, things that happen that you couldn't control. And so therefore, strife can tear a relationship apart. It can tear a family apart. Ultimately, strife brings your house to look like a shack. And the cold part is you don't even know how it happened. But last week I shared with you, listen to me, when there's a damage, when there's water damage, when there's water damage, if you don't address it right away, mildew will set in first. And then mold follows it. And then when mold follows it, I shared last week how you have to rip out everything. Everybody in Louisiana, in Texas, in Houston, who just experienced that flood. I was watching a ministry talk about how the whole bottom half of their house they had to gut. The top floor was okay, but the bottom floor, listen to me, was damaged to the point that they had to gut everything out. And the problem with a lot of our lives is upstairs is okay. And so you live in the upstairs of your life and you never visit the... Hebrews 12:15 says, looking carefully, lest anyone fall short of the grace of God. Looking carefully, lest anyone fall short of the grace of God, lest any root of bitterness spring up, cause trouble. And by this, many become defiled. And so, listen to me, you can become defiled and not even know that you're defiled, and you've been defiled by the bitterness, listen to me, that was previously resentment, that was the result of hurts and pains that you could not get over, violations, things that happened to you that take your breath away. And so it's not the devil, it's you, it's me. So resentment is the attitude people have towards someone or something because everything went wrong. And I had realized over the years, as the Lord gave me that word, how I had gotten resentful. I told you last week, I've never in 18 years of ministry started talking about how I don't like people. Because listen to me, when those components, when that open wound is there, you just start not liking people. You come home, don't like folk. You go to work not liking folk. Now, y'all ain't got to be real if you don't want to. Oh, no, you wake up one morning next to your spouse, and you be like, I really don't even like you. Matter of fact, it's probably your fault why we're here anyway. Why? Because one of the things that we will not do in our own psyche, for whatever reason it is, our humanity, our frailty, is take ownership for what we... Resentment is a negative reactions to events, believe it or not, that we see that are unfair, and so therefore left unchecked, continued resentment can change someone's nature into bitterness. And Job knows that all too well. And here's where some of us have been, and maybe some of your friends are. Job 7:11 says, therefore I will not restrain my mouth. I will speak in the anguish of my spirit. I will complain in the bitterness in my soul. So it comes through the heart, it gets into a man's soul. And listen to me, you get so sick and tired of being sick and tired that you embrace strife, don't realize it, and you've now swallowed strychnine, and it's slowly killing you. And so therefore you're going to open your mouth up, and every time you open your mouth, you're spewing bitterness and strife. But you don't realize it. You know why? Somebody got to keep it real, boo. Somebody got to tell you about yourself. And I'm the one. Here's the insight. The seat of a man's heart is tied to his soul, which can only manifest, hear me, whatever's inside of it. You will... This becomes this as a result of what you let in. As a result of, watch this, not addressing the termites, not addressing the mold. Listen to me, you had cracks in your foundation. Yeah, you love God, but you ain't really rocking with God like that to do it the way God wants you to do it. Come on, we can all, amen, lack of maintenance. You know, one of the things that I've learned, anything that God entrusts to us, it calls for maintenance. It calls for you to do work. Well, you know, we came up with a definition for ministry. You know how you spell ministry? W-O-R-K. Then I translated that over into marriage. You know how you spell marriage? W-O-R-K. If you don't want to do no work, don't get married. Hey, and if you don't want to do a lot of work, don't have no kids. Yeah, brother said, too late. Gotcha. Bam. What you gonna do now? Who you gonna call? Ghostbusters. They call Jesus. See, resentment is as old as Genesis chapter 4, where Cain was so angry that God, listen to me, accepted Abel's sacrifice over his. They both gave, but they both gave from different hearts. One loved God and gave everything. The other said, I'll give a little. And so resentment sets in. And in relationships, I think that's something that happens to all of us. When one gives out of the wrong heart, or they half give and not contribute, one is giving their all, and then somehow jealousy can set in. Somehow resentment can set in because I'm giving everything and you're hardly giving nothing. God told him, he said, hey, man, listen, you're going to be all right. Why has your countenance changed? You see, my friend, when jealousy and hurt and those kind of things get in, or you think that the father is favoring one over the other and all that kind of stuff in the family, let me share something with you. It gets in, and before you know it, you'll kill your brother. You'll kill your marriage. You'll kill your children. So what happens to the soul? Let's get this other one up here. I'm going to need some help. What happens to the soul? Acts 23, and the Amplified says, For I see that you are provoked by bitterness and bound by sin. James 13:16 says, For wherever envy and self-seeking exists, confusion and every evil thing are there. And so the spirit of bitterness and strife actually causes the shack to come about. And so I've taught you before that the soul consists of what? Your mind, your will, your imagination. Come on, are you guys with me? You've been under this. Your intellect. Are you following what I'm saying? And so if you don't get control over these areas, your mind, that's why we're to renew our minds. Amen. Isn't that what Romans says? Where Paul pleaded with them, brother, I beseech you by the mercies of God. It wasn't religious talk. It wasn't trying to control them. He said, man, that you present your body as a holy sacrifice unto God, which is your reasonable service, the least you can do for all that he gave to you. And you will have to bend your will to the will of God. And if you don't, God will not override your will. So you are the captain of your will, until you give the captain's hat over to the Creator himself, and your intellect can interfere with you receiving my instructions. Are you with me? And your imagination can run away with you, that causes things to enter into you, not only your mind, but into your spirit, and manifest in your life and house that will tear it down. And so again, what happens? Listen to me. There's mold in your soul. There's mold in your soul. That brother got mold in his soul. He got termites in it. He got cracks in it. So what happens? What happens in between all these things is you get rejection. You have abandonment. Matter of fact, sister said it. You have, watch this, humiliation comes. Betrayal comes. Injustice. Guess what else happens? Then unforgiveness sets in. That's where you get your resentment that sets in. And all because, listen to me, you're angry. So therefore you've allowed, listen to me, bitterness and strife to be in the seat of your heart, in the seat of your soul. And so again, only what's in a man comes out of a man. Are you following me so far? I need somebody to help me real quick to be a... all right, so this is what we're going to do. I'm going to have both of you help me, all right? So I'm going to put you on this side, right? And then, so Chris, you take this marker, all right, and get ready, okay? And then Willie, you take this. This is a glue stick. And when I tell you to go, you're going to start to post these up all over the board wherever you feel like placing them, okay? But hold on. Chris, you ready? So listen to me. All of these things, listen to me, that contaminate the soul. Listen to me, past hurts, pains. Listen to me, violations that happen. Let me see if I'm in the right house, because some of you can't really afford to sleep. How many of you guys have experienced rejection before? How many of you experienced abandonment before? How many of you, come on, how many of you been angry? And watch this, that should not have happened. They should not have done that. Come on. All right? So now, the soul now starts to become dark. And we don't realize that there's a culture developing inside of this house. So therefore, whatever happens in this house, in this mind, come on, work with me, it starts to create what I call a culture. And so it creates culture in your community, culture in your family. Write this down for me, Chris. So listen to me, that's where addictions come in at. Drug addictions. Are you following what I'm saying? Everybody say all types of addictions. That's where for the believer backsliding comes in, because you're not doing the work. This is where being critical and lying spirit comes in at. See, all of this stuff unaddressed, it'll make you critical of others. It'll bring about a lie. You'll fabricate stuff. Why? Because you're constantly trying to create a world that really doesn't exist. But if it can exist in your imagination, you will allow that to pacify you, although it's not a reality. And then we have lustful desires that come in. And then we know that, listen to me, lust of the flesh, what it does. And then we have this thing called envy. You start envying people, places, and things. Why? Because it's out of this spirit of fear next. Write down fear. Fear takes place. And here's the deal. Fear is also the root of a lot of reasons why people don't experience their deliverance. Are you with me? And then disrespect happens. Disrespect. You become disrespectful in your relationships. You become disrespectful in your house. You become disrespectful at work. Matter of fact, you start sowing all these kind of seeds and not understanding why are you harvesting these things. I tell people all the time, the worst thing and my mother told me one day, I'll never forget this. After all I seen her go through, the abuse that she went through, I promised that I would never do my wife the way that my stepfather did my mother. And one of the worst things is when you promise yourself that you watch this, something you will never do or become, and the very thing that you hate, you become. My mother told me, she said, you know what? You're treating her like MC treated me. And I cried because I couldn't see that. I had picked up abusive behavior from verbal. So I wasn't doing like the things they was doing, but there was residue from it. Yeah. Why? Because every environment creates a culture, and it breeds living organisms. Are you with me, Chris? So here's the, I want to stay there just for a moment. See, when you become disrespectful, you can't even see your disrespect. When a spirit of rebellion comes up, when somebody tells you you're disrespectful. Because listen to me, you're in that mode of still fighting. And you don't even realize you're fighting. You feel that, listen to me, that drowning experience was 20 years ago, 5 years ago. And so you're past that. But you don't realize in your actions, you're fighting the help that's trying to come. The people that mean you good. Are you following what I'm saying? And then here's something that's big that manifests: poverty and struggle. Get ready, Willie. And then the spirit of slothfulness that sets in. Because you don't want to take accountability. And you don't want nobody to hold you accountable. We have a generation today that doesn't want anybody to hold them accountable to anything. Now, Willie, you can start posting these up here. And then, listen to me, sexual perversion has creeped into the United States big. Amen. So that's how we have homosexuality, lesbianism. It's gone from this into transgender. So it's one thing to be, okay, you're fighting for being transgender. Now, God dog, that spirit then turned into, well, we don't want to be no gender. Then that spirit tell you, guess what? You got a right to be whatever you want to be today. So you don't even have to be what you were yesterday. So however you feel today, you can be that. You can marry whoever you want to marry. They got people marrying trees. Come on. They got bills, listen, they got a male group that's in the process of working on passing a bill that for young boys to for young boys to exercise their right if they want to be in a relationship with a grown man. Tell me that ain't perversion. So now, listen to me, when you have all of these things present, listen to me, creates a dark soul. And when the soul is dark, listen to me, whatever's happening in the people happens in the household. Whatever's happening in the people happens in the community. And that's how we have ghettos. That's how we have, listen to me, the drug addiction. That's how we have black on black crime. Why? Because it's strife. Why? Because poverty has bred it. Why? Abandonment has bred it. Why? Why? Rejection has bred it. Single family homes. Am I talking to the choir, or are you guys with me? 18 the statistics came out a few years ago that 1,876 black babies are aborted every day in U.S. 93% of blacks killed are killed by other blacks. 67% of blacks live in single-parent households. 52% of blacks don't graduate from high school. We have now, more than ever before, our male children, male boys, who are not going to school. Imagine in 2010, you had more blacks killed by other black people than in the early 1900s when the Ku Klux Klans were killing blacks. Why is it that Chicago has to be called Chi-Town, Chirac? And it's not police killing, it's blacks killing each other. Why? Because listen to me, if I can create a ghetto in your mind, watch this, if I don't give you the proper help that you need, and you're not open to get the help that you need, listen to me, we'll create a ghetto. So that's how your household looks like a ghetto, but you think it's a palace. Your relationship looks like a shack, but you think it's good. Why? You don't know how to let stuff go. But here's the other problem that I realize even as a counselor, and I've been at fault with telling people, just get over it. Well, that's a message from this system. Just get over it. How do you tell me just to get over it when I've been ostracized? How do you tell me to just get over it when, listen to me, I've been enslaved? How do you tell me to just get over it when the system is not set up for me to win? How do you tell me to just get over it when you've cut my foot off, you shackled my hands, and you expect from me to pull up my britches and just get it together because I can? There's a genocide that's going on right before our eyes. And all of this stuff, let me tell you why the church is empty. And for some of you that think that it's the preacher's message, it ain't. The church is empty because ain't nobody doing no work no more. Don't nobody want to address themselves. Don't nobody want to get to the root of the wound. Don't nobody want to talk about this stuff. Everybody want to move over, change shirts, change your dress, change your lipstick. Come on, change your hair. Come on, get a haircut. Come on, put on some good cologne. Come on, somebody, come on. I know how to dress up and have a fight all at the same time, don't we? Hello? Hello? Oh, no, y'all playing. Y'all playing. Then we know how to dress up real good and then have a breakout fight. Just throw down. Just be crazy. Be like, this is not God. But who gonna check me, boo? Who gonna check me? We don't, watch this. There's no submission to each other. Because there's no submission to God. And then how can you expect me to love you when I really, truth be told, can I tell you the whole truth, nothing but truth? So help me God, I don't even really love myself. But you mad at me because I can't give you what you want that I don't have in me to give. Because I haven't dealt with this. I haven't dealt with this. Let somebody, like my sister said, I hope you don't mind me saying, Sister Robbie, conversation that we had. When somebody exits your life, and there's things that you didn't get to address, all that does is just stop. The only person that can turn all of this around and go from a shack to a palace is you and God. Because all of these things, my friend, this is my point that I got off of, and I'm done. All of these things gone unaddressed. Watch this. You see this right here? These are, you can't see it. These are pictures of black men in prison. All of this stuff is designed that happens to us to move us away from God. And so all of this stuff here, let me give you another picture of it. It becomes bondage. It becomes a stronghold. And here's the cold part. You see how you see these words right here? When these things exist in a man's life, they become bars. And so we see out of these bars. But you expect me to function like I'm free when these things have held me captive. I'm being held captive by these things. And I'm fighting for my life. And you don't even realize it. And you're not helping me, you're adding to the problem. And in some respects, I've become comfortable with my prison. And I don't want you to address the pains of my past, the things that I need to get over. Because I'm okay in a 10 by 8 cell. I'm okay with somebody else giving me 3 meals a day and a cot. I'm okay, listen to me, being on the system. I'm okay with the welfare. I'm okay with GR. I've come to, be okay with not being a king and being a pauper. That's it. That's it. Only you can do the work. Only you. Only you. And it takes having a real encounter with God. The underlining component to strife are really issues of control. Now you have to think about that, because it gives you a flawed perspective, it gives you flawed assumptions, and unrelenting stress that starts to erode every aspect of your life, opening up the door to sickness and disease. Because that's what this brings about, sickness and disease. That's why the city comes and places a sign on the house that says condemned, do not enter. How many of us every day live lives that are condemned? Watch this. Are we even condemning ourselves? And for some of us, it's not about anybody but us releasing the shame of our past, the guilt of our past, the mistakes that we've made. You take ownership, you do the work, and you move on. You don't have to live in the prison of your past. All right, I'm done for real. Good. You guys get this?